I've been playing music professionally since I was 15. I think I have maybe 4,000 concerts done and a couple, maybe, I think I reached those 10,000 hours. For me, music is my meditation. It's my relaxation. It's my metaphor. It's in a way how I regard life. Short story, long story short, the thing is this. I grew up in the Eastern Bloc of Hungary during the Soviet rule. And when I was 4 years old, there was absolutely nothing to do. So my mother said, you have two choices. And we went away and I had no idea what we were doing, 4 years. So she said, here's your first choice. And I got to dance ballet, you know, and I put on those tights. And those tights, they were so itchy. I don't know if you tried ballet tights, they itch, like anything. So I just said, Mom, whatever the other thing is, I'll take it. And she said, well, lucky for you, it's piano. And they have this method of teaching piano, which is the Kodaly method, which is doing it by watching somebody do it. So you listen to somebody, they play a note on something, and then you do something, in response. So you start getting the principles of music. You don't start with the finger setting, the back straight, breathing in, hold your hands right, duck, 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 classical school style. It was more of a playful, putting on that playful hat that Harry talked about in the beginning. And the playfulness and bringing your whole self to a place is what, for me, Havening is. Because I went from playing music in a playful way, not understanding the science, not understanding, I don't read music, despite having written over 100 songs, they're all on Spotify for you. Uh, but I do understand the principle, and I do understand when it feels good. And that's what brought me into therapy, actually, because I did a show, which was a theatrical show with, we had knife throwers on stage and Rubber Woman on the grand piano, bending inside out, making a knot of herself, the human knot. And after the gig, the knife thrower introduced me to a colleague of mine today who's a hypnotist called Frederick Presto. And Frederick said, hi, I'm a hypnotist. I said, why would you be that? Well, it's very useful. Well, for what? Well, you can get rid of a phobia in 20 minutes. Wow, that's cool. So I called my wife. Honey, don't you have a phobia for sharks even when you swim in the bathtub? Yes, I do, dear. Oh, well, I have this guy here. He'll do hypnosis. I'll take it, she says. So she did. And she got rid of it. And I got fascinated and I learned it. And I started using hypnosis on the stage. So I could tell the band, do you want a standing ovation? And I would bet them that I could arrange that by simply planning it in the movements of my talk during the evening so that people would kind of see the rising, motion of stuff. And all you have to do, the trick is you have to get the first 5 people to stand up, because if they do, the other ones behind can't see. And they paid for more expensive seats, so they will stand up. And the ones behind are going, what the heck? And they'll stand up too. So there's a science to standing ovations, like everything, like Doug was saying. And I love your presentation, Doug, by the way. So for me, it was about learning by doing, learning to get the interaction going. And for me, the interaction, it's like a magic that is created between me, if I'm playing solo, and the audience. And it needs to be me and the audience. It's not me for the audience. It's me and the audience together. We're dancing, but we're using music. So my music goes from me into the audience ears, into their body, into their heart. And if I reach their heart, it will come back out and come back to me. And then I went from hypnosis to NLP, which is experiential learning and watching the process. And from there, I went to tapping. And from tapping, Doug introduced me, thank you, Doug, forever, to Ron and Stephen. And we had been reading their book, When the Past is Always Present, Ron's book. And it was the only book we could use with tapping because the explanation model was scientific. We don't mind woo-woo. We believe in meridians, but we need the amygdala and the depotentiation. So finally, we got some theory to push onto that. And then I went to London. We saw Ron and Steve, who kindly took us there. And I thought Havening was brilliant. So many hypnotists, so many musicians, and so many of these metaphors I was using were suddenly working. When I started doing therapy, I realized a concert for many people is therapy in a group setting. I even had, sometimes somebody in the audience would come up and say, I've been at home for 5 years. This is the first time I left my home because I wanted to see you once more. So fine, I understood it. So therapy is a concert for one. My audience is one person, that person sitting in front of me. and I have to find out what is their favorite tune. If I want them to go distraction to a calm place, I don't suggest my tune, let's go to a calm place. I suggest them to show me their tune. I tune in as I would with a fellow musician to see, where are they? What's the kind of groove they know? Because I'm kind of limited as a musician. I can play a few grooves. I do them a lot, but there are a lot of grooves I don't do. So I have to find out what are the grooves we can do together. Which one are the ones that we can do together? And I usually use this to explain havening to people nowadays. You've seen these. There's this tone. I don't know if you hear it. Now, I tell them, this is the tone you get when you hit one of these gong bowls. And havening, it's what happens. I don't know if you can hear it. I demonstrate that a slow movement can create a tone. And I say, that's what happens when you touch your shoulders. And that's the delta wave. Imagine this tone being the metaphor for the delta wave. So having said all that, this is about having fun because it's Friday and it's 11 o'clock in Sweden. And I had to use the electric because my neighbors were going to kill me otherwise. But I'm kind of a fan of New Orleans music. And that's because New Orleans is actually a place that for me is kind of like home in a weird way. You'd say a Swedish guy, what about New Orleans? But I was born in Colombia. I grew up in Hungary and Spain and all these places and different cultures. And when I started playing music professionally at 18, I played with Clarence Frogman Henry from New Orleans. I went and saw him. I went there 35 times. And what I like about New Orleans music is that the New Orleans music is a mixture. And that's just like me. I'm a mongrel when it comes to therapy. I'm in the NLP Society of Sweden. I'm the chairman of the NLP Society, and I don't know how they got to that because I'm not clean cut in it. They tell me, yeah, it's interesting when you do NLP demonstrations because it's never clean. It's always something else. You throw in that havening or that tapping or that hypno, whatever. Because in music, that's what you do. You throw in what you have in any moment if it fits the occasion. Now, when I teach, and if anybody's here who I've taught, you will know that I teach, I say, this is how havening is done, and this is how you can do it as well. Because I think, that, the Swedish smorgasbord, it's about having many dishes and combining them in any way that works. Just got a little note from my wife here on the flip saying that the mic is getting a little, whooshy sound on it, and that's technology, and that's what happens in a havening session as well, because in a havening session, anything can go wrong. And if you're a hypnotist, if the doorbell rings or the neighbors start pounding the wall or a dog starts barking, you just incorporate it. You say, as we're havening, close your eyes, and obviously my neighbor is mad and the police are here to get me, but we'll finish the session in time. I find the show must go on is such a great way to do havening. And I find that the musical metaphor of dancing, finding the groove, changing to whatever happens, and that's how I incorporate, sometimes people say, when are you going to go informational, affirmational, hopeful, outcome? And I go, yeah, it's like verses, you start either transpirational or you go event, because it depends on what you have. And from there, you probably go from one to the other. If you have a transpirational, you find the event. If you have the event, you go from the event to transpirational and go to the other one. And then you put in a little hopeful, and you put in some outcome, you put in some aff and if, and maybe you do the roll as well. So I want to round this off. I don't know if I'm rambling here or rounding off, but I'm kind of enjoying it. I want to round this off by playing a song for you just to show how the metaphor of music for me can be kind of, I call music and art the language of the soul, because music is not there to protect us. It's not there to feed us. It's not there for nutrition. It is there for our soul, such as havening is as well, because that's what we do. We go get a session of therapy because we don't feel well, right? So any therapeutic intervention in the world is about changing how somebody feels. So if the person feels different after, it worked. If they don't feel different, it didn't. And making a person feel different is so easy just by changing their state and relaxing them. And then you have a little window of opportunity, 10 minutes from activating those amp receptors, you want to throw in 5 minutes of havening, so you calm it down. It's the same with an audience. You get them to clap in the beginning of a solo. You have a window of opportunity of 3 minutes to play some really cool notes, and they will stand up and give you ovation. And I thought I'd round this off, because it's late and bedtime here in Sweden, with a song that I wrote for my grandfather. So I grew up in 7 countries, 11 schools, kind of a mongrel when it comes to culture. And my grandfather was the only spot we came back to in Sweden at all times. And he lives in the forest, in the deep, dark forest of the Småland, as it's called, where Pippi Longstocking comes from. I don't know if you know her, braided hair, red hair, broken socks. So those forests were the only spot I knew over and over in my life. And when he died, I just felt I wanted to compose something that was, in a way, a little bit like Mose Allison, but like folk music and jazz and all of it at the same time. So I just closed my eyes and I saw him standing in his house in the woods. He would be living on his own. He wouldn't buy anything except water. He would have the meat from the forest. He would grow his own vegetables. And he was a therapist. He was a massage therapist. People would come with crutches. He would have 3 treatments. They would open the window and throw the crutches out. And that inspired me. I love my granddad. So I'll play this at every wedding, every funeral, every baptism, and every concert that's done over the internet with Doug and Harry about havening in the key of jazz. Every single one of them. That's what I got for you. So I'm going to hand it back to our host, Harry.
Thank you so much. Oh, Samson, give him some love. Give him some love. Give him a hand or whatever. That was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.